This is not a superstition. This is a mechanic. In 1966, the birth rate in Japan collapsed by 25%. It was not a famine. It was not a war. It was a belief so primal, so terrified, and so deeply ingrained in the collective unconscious of the East that millions of parents decided it was better to have no child than to have a daughter born under the star of the Bingwu. They called it the fire horse. They whispered that a woman born in this year would be unmanageable. They said she would destroy her husband. They said she would burn through her father's fortune like a wildfire through dry pine. They called her a natural disaster in human form. Modern man laughs at this. He sits in his climate-controlled box, staring at his blue light screen, and he calls it folklore. He believes that the calendar is simply a way of counting days, a linear progression of numbers from 1 to infinity. He believes that time is neutral. He is wrong. Time is not a line. Time is a spiral, and time has a texture. Some years are wet, some years are heavy, some years are hard, and some years are on fire. We are entering the year of the Bingwu in 2026. The fire horse returns every 60 years, and every time it returns, the world does not just change, it combusts. This is a strategic briefing on the anatomy of the coming year. This is a breakdown of the physics, the metaphysics, and the history of the Bingwu pillar. We are going to explain why this specific frequency of energy is so feared. We are going to explain why it creates tyrants, why it creates revolutionaries, and why it creates main character syndrome on a planetary scale. And most importantly, we are going to teach you how to survive it. Because if you treat 2026 like a normal year, if you try to play by the rules of the old city, you will be burned. You are standing in a room filled with gasoline vapor. The fire horse is the match. To understand the disaster, you must first understand the architecture of the energy itself. We must look at the pillar. Chinese metaphysics, Bazi, is not astrology in the Western sense. It is not about personality quirks. It is about elemental mechanics. It describes the interaction of qi, energy, as it flows from heaven to earth. The year is defined by two characters. The heavenly stem. This is the energy coming from the sky. It represents the divine intent, the surface appearance, the head. The earthly branch. This is the energy of the ground. It represents the terrestrial reality, the substance, the body. Usually, these two energies moderate each other. In a water monkey year, the metal of the monkey generates the water. It is a harmonious flow. In an earth rat year, the earth controls the water. It is a frictional but balanced relationship. But Bingwu is an anomaly. The stem is Bing, yang fire. Bing is the sun. It is the most powerful, radiant, and visible force in the universe. It is the source of all life, but also the source of all scorching. It creates the desert. Bing is the archetype of the king. It demands to be seen. It shines on everything equally, the saint and the sinner, the gold and the garbage. It has no filter. It has no secrets. It casts no shadow because it is the light. The branch is Wu, the horse. In the zodiac, the horse represents the cardinal direction of the south. It represents the peak of the summer season. It represents the time of day known as high noon. The horse is the only animal that sleeps standing up. It is restless. It is powerful. It is the engine of movement. It is pure, unadulterated fire energy rooted in the earth. So, what happens when you put the sun, Bing, on top of the peak of fire, Wu? You get fire sitting on fire. You get fire at the zenith. You get a double yang structure. There is no water to cool it. There is no earth to ground it. There is no metal to structure it. There is no wood to feed it. It feeds itself. In physics, we call this a flashover. In a structural fire, a flashover occurs when the heat in a room rises to a critical temperature where everything in the room ignites simultaneously. The furniture doesn't catch fire because a flame touched it. The furniture catches fire because the air itself has become fire. The atmosphere becomes combustible. This is the definition of 2026. It is an atmospheric flashover of the collective consciousness. The temperature of the world, the emotional, political, and financial temperature, rises to a point where the logic circuits melt, where the insulation of civilization evaporates. When this energy enters the human system, it bypasses the prefrontal cortex, logic. It goes straight to the amygdala, fight or flight. It goes straight to the heart, the seat of the spirit. It creates a state of high noon in the soul. At high noon, there are no shadows. This sounds positive. No shadows sounds like enlightenment. It sounds like clarity. But shadows are necessary. Shadows provide depth. Shadows provide nuance. Shadows allow for cooling. Shadows allow for diplomacy. Diplomacy is the art of the shadow. It is the art of saying one thing and meaning another to keep the peace. It is the polite fiction that allows society to function. The fire horse burns the polite fiction. It destroys the gray areas. Everything becomes binary. Everything becomes extreme. You are either a saint or a devil. You are either a patriot or a traitor. You are either based or woke. You are either with us or against us. This is why the fire horse is called a natural disaster. It destroys the subtle, cool, shaded ecosystem of civilization. It exposes everything to the blinding, scorching light of the absolute truth, or what the ego perceives to be the absolute truth. What does this look like in a human being? Or more importantly, what does this look like in you when the year activates this energy within your chart? The fire horse archetype is the narcissist of destiny. We do not use the word narcissist here in the clinical sense of a personality disorder. We use it in the energetic sense. The fire horse creates a gravitational field where the self becomes the center of the universe. Bing, the sun, believes everything revolves around it, and astronomically, it is correct. The planets do revolve around the sun. When a human being channels this energy, they become incredibly charismatic. They glow. They radiate warmth, optimism, and power. They walk into a room and the energy level spikes. They attract followers. They attract lovers. They attract voters. But the sun has a fatal flaw. It cannot see anything but itself. The sun does not know what darkness is. It has never seen the night. The sun does not know what cold is. Therefore, the fire horse lacks empathy for the weak. It lacks understanding of failure. It lacks patience for the slow. Why can't you just do it? Why are you so tired? Why don't you see the vision? The fire horse assumes that everyone else has the same infinite energy source that it does, and when they don't, it burns them. In 2026, you will see the rise of main character syndrome on a mass scale. Everyone believes they are the star of the movie. Everyone believes their opinion is the absolute truth. Everyone believes their pain is the only pain that matters. This creates a society of colliding stars. When two suns get too close, they do not merge. They destroy each other. They tear each other apart with tidal forces. This is the disaster. It is the inability of the collective to cooperate because every individual is consumed by the I am. In 1966, this manifested as the Red Guards in China. Millions of teenagers, each believing they were the personal savior of the revolution, each believing they had the moral authority to judge their elders, their teachers, and their parents. It was a mass outbreak of the divine ego. They did not listen to reason because the sun does not listen to the candle. They burned the libraries because the past was a shadow and they were the light. They humiliated the intellectuals because complexity is an insult to the binary purity of the fire. In 2026, this will manifest as the sovereign influencer. Millions of people with cameras, broadcasting their truth, demanding to be worshipped, demanding to be heard. The cacophony will be deafening. It will be a disaster of noise, a disaster of vanity, and like a wildfire, it consumes oxygen. The firehorse personality sucks the air out of the room. If you have ever worked for a firehorse boss, you know this. You cannot breathe around them. They take up all the space. They take up all the attention. In 2026, the culture itself will suck the air out of your lungs. You will feel suffocated by the sheer intensity of the collective ego. You will feel the anxiety of erasure, the fear that if you do not scream, you do not exist. We must go deeper into the mechanics. In the technical study of Bazi, there is a specific interaction called the self-penalty. This occurs when certain earth branches meet themselves. Dragon meets dragon, pig meets pig, rooster meets rooster, horse meets horse. 2026 is a horse year. If you have a horse in your chart, born in 1966, 1978, 1990, 2002, 2014, you are entering a woo-woo self-penalty. But even if you don't, the year itself is a horse, and the month of June, the horse month, creates the penalty for the entire world. And every day around noon, horse hour, the penalty triggers. What is a self-penalty? It is exactly what it sounds like. It is an injury that you inflict upon yourself. It is not the enemy who defeats you. It is not the economy that crushes you. It is your own bad judgment. It is the unforced error. The fire horse. Self-penalty is driven by impatience and volatile emotion. The fire moves so fast it trips over its own hooves. It gets angry so quickly that it burns bridges it still needs to cross. It bets the house on a sure thing because it refuses to look at the downside. It falls in love with the idea of something rather than the reality of it. In 2026, the natural disaster will largely be a collection of millions of individual self-penalties. The investor who leverages 100x on a crypto coin and gets liquidated. The politician who says the quiet part out loud in a moment of arrogance and gets canceled. The spouse who has an affair because they are bored and destroys their family. The nation that launches a missile to show strength and triggers a world war. These are all acts of the woo-woo penalty. They are acts of self-sabotage driven by an excess of yang energy. The engine is too big for the chassis. When you floor the gas, the car doesn't go forward. It spins out and hits the wall. This is the kinetic trap we discussed in previous briefings. You are flooded with chemical instructions to move, to fight, to run. But if you act on them impulsively, without the cooling influence of water or the structural influence of metal, you destroy yourself. The fire horse hates process. It hates waiting. It wants the result now. And in its haste to get the result, it destroys the vehicle. To prove that this is not a metaphor, we must look at the data. The ancients were not guessing, they were recording. We must look at the specific human disasters that occurred the last time the gears of the cosmos clicked into this position. 1846, the disaster of boundaries. In 1846, the fire horse manifested in the United States as manifest destiny. President James K. Polk, a man possessed by the Bingwu energy, looked at a map and decided that he and his nation deserved it all. "I am the sun, and the sun shines everywhere." He started a war with Mexico, not out of defense, out of pure solar expansion. He pushed the borders to the Pacific. He conquered the West, but this expansion came at a terrible cost. It unbalanced the delicate compromise between free states and slave states. It lit the fuse that would explode 15 years later in the Civil War. The Fire Horse expansion of 1846 created the Fire Horse destruction of 1861. And let us not forget the Donner Party. 1846 was the year the Donner Party set out for California. They were driven by optimism. They were driven by the gold, the sun. But they ignored the warnings. They ignored the season. They ignored the shadow, winter. They believed their own hype, and they ended up eating each other in the snow. This is the dark side of Bingwu, cannibalism. When the ambition creates a hunger that the environment cannot feed, the system consumes itself. 1906, the disaster of hubris. In 1906, the Fire Horse manifested in the city of San Francisco. It was the new city of its time, wealthy, arrogant, golden. It believed it had conquered the earth. The Fire Horse arrived as the earthquake and the fire. But notice the human element. The disaster was exacerbated by the response. The military dynamited buildings to create fire breaks, but the dynamite only spread the fire. The human intervention, the yang ego trying to control the situation, made it worse. The Fire Horse punishes the illusion of control. It leveled the playing field. It turned the rich man and the beggar into the same thing, refugees in the ash. It calcined the city. 1966, the disaster of the child. This is the most potent warning for 2026. 1966 was the year of the child tyrant. A Mao Zedong unleashed the Cultural Revolution. He weaponized the youth. He told the students that they were the masters. It is right to rebel. He inverted the natural hierarchy. The Fire Horse energy makes the child feel stronger than the father. It makes the new feel superior to the old. In the West, this was the beginning of the summer of love, which quickly turned into the summer of riots. The baby boomers unleashed themselves. They burned the social contracts. They burned the sexual mores. The natural disaster here was the breakdown of the lineage. When the child judges the father, the civilization dies, because the child has energy, fire, but no wisdom, water. A society run by the Fire Horse is a society run by a tantrum. 2026, the disaster of the... What will the disaster be in 2026? We have the ingredients: expansionism, like 1846, hubris of the new city, like 1906, the child tyrant, cultural revolution, like 1966. We are seeing the rise of the digital red guard. We are seeing the new city, the tech stack, claiming it is God. We are seeing the geopolitical expansionism of the great powers. But there is a twist, a variable that makes 2026 unique in history. In 1966, Saturn was in Pisces, water. This dampened the fire slightly. It made the revolution emotional, drug-fueled, fluid, artistic. It allowed the fire to flow. In 1846, Saturn was in Aquarius, air. This fanned the flames of ideology. It made the fire intellectual. In 2026, Saturn is in Aries. Aries is fire, but Saturn is the lead box. Saturn is the planet of restriction, of gravity, of the state, of the law, of the wall. Aries is the sign of the explosion. We have a double fire, Bing Wu, happening inside a lead box, Saturn. This turns the natural disaster into a pressure cooker. Usually, a Fire Horse disaster is explosive, outward. Riots in the streets, wars on the border, burning cities. This one will be implosive, inward. The human form of this disaster will be the internalized burn. Why? Because the state, Saturn, has built a digital panopticon that prevents open rebellion. The walled garden we discussed in the New City briefing. You cannot riot if your bank account is frozen, Saturn. You cannot burn the library if the library is a server on the moon. You cannot march if the drone army is watching, so the fire cannot go out. It has nowhere to vent, so it turns on the host. This is the cardiac crunch. The disaster happens in the nervous system. The disaster happens in the mental health statistics. The disaster happens in the quiet quitting of an entire civilization that simply burns out and stops functioning. The natural disaster of 2026 is the Great Exhaustion. It is the sound of 1 billion human batteries exploding simultaneously because they were plugged into a socket with too much voltage. The self-penalty becomes biological. Autoimmune diseases, heart failure, sudden strokes. The body attacks itself because it is vibrating at a frequency it cannot sustain. Inside a cage it cannot escape. This is the alchemical crisis, the mixing of sulfur, firehorse, and salt, Saturn, in a sealed vessel. This creates calcination, the burning away of the ego, the burning away of the paper identity. It is painful. It feels like death, but it is the only way to get to the gold. This pressure cooker applies to the economy as well. The fire horse is inflation. Fire expands. It consumes fuel to grow. The fuel is the currency. In 2026, the fire horse wants to burn the fiat currency. It wants to hyperinflate the debt away. But Saturn in Aries is deflationary force. It is the central bank raising rates. It is the contraction of credit. It is the hard reality of resource scarcity. So you have stagflation. You have the worst of both worlds. Prices rising, fire, while the economy freezes, Saturn. This destroys the middle. It destroys the paper class, the people who live on fixed incomes, on salaries, on savings in the bank. The fire burns the paper. The Saturn crushes the debt holders. As we said in Fire Creates Life, the system is not broken. It is processing. It is burning away the false value. The unicorn startups with no profit, burned. The zombie companies kept alive by cheap credit, burned. The bullshit jobs that add no value, burned. What survives? The heavy, the salt, gold, land, skills, energy, things that cannot be burned, things that do not depend on the cloud. The fire horse is the auditor. It checks the books. If your wealth is based on trust, air, it evaporates. If your wealth is based on substance, earth, metal, it hardens. Socially, the fire horse creates the kill box. We discussed the gray man theory. In 2026, visibility is death. Because of the main character syndrome infecting the masses, the mob is hungry for targets. The sun wants to be the only sun. If you shine too brightly, you challenge the other suns. They will attack you. They will dox you. They will cancel you. They will sue you. Saturn in Aries adds the element of consequence. In the past, the Wild West internet, you could say crazy things and get away with it. In 2026, Saturn brings the law. Digital ID, hate speech laws, social credit. Every post is a liability. Every hot take, fire, is a potential prison sentence. Saturn. The fire horse tempts you to scream. Saturn waits to punish the scream. This is the trap. The only way to win is to not play, to become the anti-influencer, to become the gray man, to absorb the light and emit nothing, to let the false kings burn themselves out on the stage while you sit in the dark and watch. So, how do you survive the flashover? How do you live in the furnace? You must adopt the strategy of the salamander. In alchemy, the salamander is the creature that lives in the fire but is not consumed by it. How? Because it is cold on the inside. Protocol 1, the internal ice, radical cooling. You must cultivate a core of absolute Saturnine coldness. When the world is hot, emotional, reactive, you must be cold, logical, stoic. When the market is manic, yang, you must be still, yin. You must use the cold shock protocols we discussed. +1 ice baths, fasting, cooling the metabolic fire, silence, cooling the mental fire. You must balance the Bing Wu with Ren water, Yang water. Ren water is the ocean. The fire horse cannot boil the ocean. The ocean is deep wisdom. Read the classics, study history, anchor yourself in deep time. Do not doom scroll. Doom scrolling is adding wood to the fire. Reading a 500-page book from 1920 is jumping into a cold lake. Protocol 2, the shadow work. The fire horse casts no shadow. You must artificially create one. You must look at your own dark side. The self-penalty comes from the blind spot. It comes from the arrogance of, I am right. Ask yourself, where am I arrogant? Where am I reckless? Where am I delusional? Where am I pretending to be a king when I am just a pawn? Find your own shadow before the fire horse finds it for you. If you admit your weakness, the fire horse cannot use it against you. Confession is the fire break. Protocol 3, the lightning rod. Productive kineticism. Do not try to bottle the energy. You cannot meditate the fire horse away. It is kinetic energy. It needs to move. If you sit at a desk, that energy becomes anxiety. It vibrates in the sternum. If you lift weights, if you build a house, if you dig a ditch, that energy becomes work. It becomes muscle. You must give the disaster a job to do. I am not having a breakdown. I am building an empire. I am not having a panic attack. I am deadlifting 400 pounds. Transmute the destructive force into a constructive force. Be the smith. The smith uses the fire to forge the steel. He does not fear the heat. He uses the heat. Protocol 4, the no ego mandate. The disaster is the ego. Therefore, the survival strategy is egolessness. Become the void. The void cannot be burned. If you have no image to protect, you cannot be canceled. If you have no status to maintain, you cannot be humiliated. Practice the art of the empty throne. Let the others fight for the crown. You stand in the shadows and hold the keys to the pantry. Power is not in the title. Power is in the logistics. Power is in the ability to survive. We are approaching the convergence. The tectonic plates are shifting. The old city, biology reality, and the new city, digital illusion, are grinding against each other. The fire horse is the spark. Saturn is the pressure. This is a speciation event. The human race is splitting. There is Homo sapiens digitalis, the paper people. They are inflamed. They are anxious. They are addicted to the blue light. They believe the narrative. They trust the king. They will be calcined. Their wealth will burn. Their sanity will burn. They will end the year as ash. And there is the remnant, the hybrids. You are the ones who are rewilding your biology. You are the ones stepping into the cold water. You are the ones buying the gold and the land. You are the ones going dark. You are mutating. You are building a nervous system that can handle the 21st century. You are becoming anti-fragile. When the grid flickers, you will be calm. When the panic spreads, you will be steady. When the hearts of men fail them for fear, yours will beat with a steady, heavy thud. The fire horse gallops fast. It is here for a year, and then it is gone. 2027 is the year of the fire sheep. connecting way. The sheep is the graveyard of wood. It is the aftermath. It is the ashes cooling. It is the embers. When the smoke clears in 2027, the landscape will look different. The weak structures will be gone. The paper wealth will be gone. The false idols will be gone. The main characters will be forgotten. What remains? The stone, the gold, the truth, and you. If you understand the nature of the beast, you do not have to be its victim. You can be its rider. The fire horse is a natural disaster in human form, but it is also the greatest source of energy in the 60-year cycle. It is a nuclear reactor given to you for 365 days. You can let it melt you down, or you can use it to power the next 60 years of your life. The choice is yours. The fuse is lit. The horse is at the gate. This is Prescient. We are watching, and we are preparing the ice. On this channel, we cover a wide range of topics similar to this one. If you enjoy this type of content, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Otherwise, we may never see each other again. See you again soon, dear viewer.